Hi, this is Odeean. Today I'm going to be having a look at one of my Christmas presents. So this is the Bandai Evangelion 01 Test Type SPEC XS-13. I don't know what all that crap means, but this is my first EVA. I haven't bought anything from this line before. I've been kind of trying to steer a little bit clear of it, mainly because I have to limit what I spend. But seeing as how this was a gift, I really am looking forward to taking a look at everything it can do. So I think I'm just starting off this review showing how I like it to be displayed. This is kind of the final form after you put on all of the little bits and pieces of armor and what have you. So I'm just going to show this off a little bit to start. Now look at him there. The detail is really good. The surface is really nice as well. If you can see how smooth and uniform this is, Bandai really do a good job of finishing off fine paintwork and detail on their figures. And I've got nothing in Evangelion to compare this to, but just as far as I can tell, in every way, this figure is pretty much perfect. So here's a look at the back. Really nice. The paint, you can see the separations between parts where it's black and silver is really superbly separated. There's no overspray or anything, so they must have some really accurate masks going on to spray this silver and black on one piece without any kind of splatter happening. All these seam lines that you can see, they're actually lines that split panels that come off, but we'll get to that a little bit later. This is more like just having a look at what the figure looks like. Look at the face. Really beautiful. Okay, now I'm going to take all of the gear off this guy and we'll build him from the ground up. Alright, here he is, essentially nude, the underlying figure. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to bear with me for this review because this is a very intricate piece with many parts that have to be popped on and off, and it's going to take a long time to show that. So, seeing how he looks like this, he looks really... Oh, I'm losing one of those parts right now. He looks really skinny, you can see, and I mean, I must have realized that the life form underneath the restraints was skinny because he always looked skinny even with the restraint slash armor on. But you can see how really thin he is. Very alien-like. This has superb articulation. If you look here, close up, you can see that there's a ball backwards and forwards for the shoulders reaching forward motion, as well as more articulation on the shoulder itself, so we get the swinging in and out, round. You've got ab crunching here, rotation. I'm not going to show every point of articulation simply because it's safe to say that the articulation on this figure is at least equal to a human being. So you know how you can move, this guy can move that way, minus fingers. Fingers, the hands pop off and he has interchangeable hands. But even his toes are bendy down here. Alright, I'll give you a close-up of the face because it's not a lot of people will have seen one of these guys' face. Focus. Now look at that. Have you seen that before? I had never seen that before. I'm not sure if that's cartoon accurate, but either way, it's not often you'll get a figure with just the bare face of this guy. His eyes are done really nicely. Nice white and turquoise paint of the eyes. And again, absolutely perfectly painted. There is no splatter, overspray, or any other kind of defect on the way he is prepared. It feels like maybe vinyl. It's not... I mean, if you look there, when I poke my fingernail into it, you can see it temporarily leaves a mark. So it's not a hard plastic. So I'm I'm not sure if it's vinyl. It feels like it might be vinyl. Now, this is removable, this arm. If I give it a pull, you can see that will come off. And one of the options, just like in the show, is a regenerated arm. So if you remember, in one of the episodes, his arm is ripped off and he spontaneously regenerates it. Well, that's this arm. And not only is it flesh coloured, but it is translucent. I'm sure that was not necessary to do. I don't remember it being translucent in the show, but gives some nice effect. If you can see the light shining through it there, it's a really nice detail that they added that they didn't have to do. And that's fully articulated as well, just like the rest of his body. Now this hand also pops off, and there's a whole selection of translucent hands for this arm, just aside from the other hands that he has for the two normal arms. So you can see this arm also had the normal replacement hands. There's quite a few. Maybe later I'll get around to showing them all. Let's get started with the armor placement. So I'm going to pull this off because I don't want this on through the rest of the review. Put that aside. You can see the kind of peg. It's just a kind of little mushroom type. I don't know if you'd call that a mushroom, but you know what I mean. Plugs in there to stick on. The first part of converting, it's not transforming, of just armoring this guy up, is we have to remove these feet. Now, you'll see that these feet have got some nice die cast in them. Just the first, that's not even focused. Focus. Some nice die cast in those joints, so they're really strong joints. This is just the first part of tons of die cast which is in this figure. Putting those aside, I'm going to get the armoured up feet. So they just plug back into the same sockets. Now, if there's any weakness in this toy, it's that in the long run, maybe after a lot of repetition, these sockets may get loose. But I feel that the vinyl body is going to stop that from happening too soon. So as long as it's on display most of the time and not used as a toy, I feel that it's going to have a pretty long life because the body does feel quite tough. Now once those feet are on, the first thing you notice, now he's has at least double the stability. His feet are so heavy that whereas before he would fall over, the armoured up feet are really nicely weighting him down. They have more die cast in them. The next part we want to do is pop off these shoulders because these are not necessary in the final look. This one's a little bit stiff sometimes. When you get it, you might be tempted to believe that this shoulder doesn't actually come off. And I was weighing up whether I should force it before because I really felt like it was on so tight I was going to break it. But I assure you, it does come off. There we go. So he has two shoulders that are the same, but one is just really, really rock solid. So the first shoulder option is simply to pop on ordinary looking purple shoulders. Like that. So there are some much bigger shoulders I'll show you later, but for the time being that can stay on. Alright, the next part of the transformation is we're going to separate his body into a few segments to allow the armour to go on. So the first one is the lower legs are going to just pop off, and then we're going to rip him apart at the waist. So it looks like we've basically butchered him now, but that is the way it must be. So grabbing the lower portion of the body, we're going to get this part and slide it up like this. Now nothing holds that there, it's just friction. Then on the front of that, now listen to this, listen to this. This is die-cast pieces we're putting on. These are not plastic. These are not vinyl. These are heavy die-cast pieces with these little plastic panels that can peg on at the front. So the friction of the vinyl in the peg will hold that in place. Turning him over, there's some kind of a bum plate, buttocks guard, I don't know what you want to call it, and another piece that goes over his arse cheek on this side. And this is also a little plastic piece. There's a lot of die-cast. They didn't do every armoured panel in die-cast, although I'm sure they could have, but I guess what they were really trying to achieve is to keep the really heavy parts lower down. So the higher up you go, the less die-cast there is, and that makes sense, of course. So now that the thighs are on, we're going to pop these legs, lower legs, back into their socket above the knee. He looks like he's wearing shorts. And put the shin guards on. So again, listening to this, this is heavy metal here. It just tabs in at the front, and then more die-cast tabs in at the back, and finally a little plastic bit tabs in at the knee. I'm just going to quickly repeat the process on the other side. Okay, so there we have the lower part of the body. Now onto this is going to go his groin guard. So you can see this is a plastic piece that just has to flex a little bit to go over, and then it tabs in at the front. This upper portion has a few segments that will go over the waist or torso. Now that these are on, I can reinsert the lower portion. So you can see that makes a really nice kind of abdomen area. He can maintain full articulation with these individual panels that slide over each other. These panels are plastic, not die-cast. So as I said, most of the die-cast in the lower portion of the body. Now on the back here, there was this little portion which I've pulled out. So this is kind of where the entry plug goes. We pulled this off. It's supposed to open, but for some reason my one's kind of stuck. I don't want to force it. It seems a bit unnecessary to try and force it. This is supposed to open so the entry plug can go in like that. My one doesn't want to do it. It must have been in the box a bit too long. I'm sure if I heated it up it might undo. But the reason that that is not necessary is because we're going to pull off this head and put it aside. And once we've done that, we're going to use this armoured entry plug cover. So you can see here that this can fully open. If I can focus on it like that. And the entry plug can just sit in there like that. So you can recreate scenes from the cartoon with, who's in here? I don't know, Shinji? Is that who's in there? Shinji popping in and out of this plug. So I'm putting the entry plug aside, don't need that anymore. I'll shut this up and just squeeze this into the space at the top to make it stick there. Next, grab this back panel and locks on like so. Turn him around. We have a few options at the front. This is the normal option. So it feels a little cold. I want to say that there's some metal there, but it doesn't look like it. Maybe it's just that there's 3 layers of different coloured plastic. It gives it more weight than I was expecting. Neck guards. So these little pieces just go here and here. And the same tab that will hold the chest on is supposed to tab through those pieces to keep it in place. Okay, you can see that the 2 tabs went through these neck guards and into the body. a little bit difficult to do. Then we can grab his armoured up or restrained up head, depending on what you want to consider it, and just push it on, and there you go. Now his mouth can open and close. And is on a nice ball there. Let's have a look at some poses that we can get out of him. Now, it's not really a toy. It's a display piece, ultra posable, beautifully crafted display piece. If you play with this, it will literally fall to pieces while you're doing it. So I mean, you can't give this to a kid. You wouldn't want to give it to a kid. It's not that cheap. It's not that expensive. It was a gift, so I didn't ask how much it was, but I've looked it up, and I'm guessing it was around $100 shipped. Can't be sure, but I think that's what it cost. Sort of middle of the range. You could call it a chogokin, I guess, because it is quite heavy in metal content, but it doesn't say chogokin on the box, just a Bandai toy. Now, as I said, there are some other options for the shoulders. If we pop off these two shoulder pads and just put them aside, you can see the stability there. I've just left it and he hasn't fallen over, and the ground is actually tilting back here. We can pop on these huge shoulder pieces. I don't know what the purpose of these shoulder pieces is in the show, but I have seen him wearing these, and I like the look of these. It's kind of a signature look for the Evas. Very, very nice. He's got a few bits and pieces that come with him that aren't shown here. Now, firstly, there is this enhancement for his chest region. So I'm not going to put it on now because I don't really like it, but you can see that this part has the ability to lock on here. You take off the chest panel and then you peel off part of his vinyl torso that is underneath, and then this can peg on, and I think this is the organ that he ate from one of the angels. I believe they call it the S2 engine. I'm not sure, but anyway, that's like a power source for him, like an organ that can be inside of his body and give him power when he's disconnected from his electrical feed or has no battery power left. So putting that aside, he also comes with this fantastic looking gun. I'll give you a close-up of the gun. So you can see it's, again, very smooth. The paint is done very, very nicely. There's no overspray, nothing like that. We've got 5 colours. We've got silver, grey, green, yellow, black. Quite nice. It can go into one of his sworded hands and it fits in with no trouble. You just kind of get it to the right position and there you go. Apart from that, we have this horrible, deadly looking weapon. This toy doesn't look the way that I remember it to be from the show. I thought that in the show it was some kind of vibrating blade, but this looks more like a conventional knife, and he can just grasp that in one of his hands. I'll have a look at the hand. Which one can he put it in? So here is a grabbing hand. Let's try to stick it in there. So he has a wide arrangement, a right assortment of hands you can pick and choose from. Pretty standard poses, nothing lacking. You get what you need. And then lastly, as far as his attachments for his body are concerned, we get this. I like this. This is a halo. I like the religious overtones in this series, although it's not kind of directly religious. A lot of religious currents in it, and he's kind of a holy, divine being now. I think it would have been better if it had a bit of yellow colour to it. Still, it's very nice. They picked this colour probably because it's the same colour as the mouldings in the stand, and I know it would have been extra expense to do it in a different plastic colour, but still, it would be a little bit better if it was shiny yellow, as far as I'm concerned. Speaking about the stand, here it is. So if on camera, I'm not sure, can you see through that? It is actually see-through. You could put a light under that and it would glow. It doesn't come with a light, but it is a very secure base. Now, it doesn't say anything on it, but I'm assuming that's the nerve pyramid down under the ground. It's not in scale or anything, but it just gives you the idea of nerve. It has little grasping claws on it to hold him around the waist, which fit surprisingly well in between the armoured panels on his waist there. Lift up his hand so you can see. So you can see they kind of just go in there. It's not a rock solid bond, but I found that it holds the weight relatively well. So you can see I've just plopped it down and it's holding him up. I don't want to move the camera back. My room is pretty small. It's hard to get a shot. Hang on, I'll just bend it backwards. Forgive the vibration. So you can see it just holds him up there. I mean, because it's not pegging into his body, you don't get the option for some really outrageous poses where he would be at weird angles, but it suffices for holding him up while you have him on display. They could very easily have put a peg hole in the back and had a more solid connection, but for some reason they've chosen not to. Maybe it's got to do with the moulding process on that vinyl part here. Maybe it's got to do with it would have interfered with the quality of this paintwork. I'm not sure. So, some scale shots. Scale. What can I use for scale? Right. Here is a dirty old ruler. What does he come up to? The top of his head is around about 7 inches for you Americans, about 17.5 centimeters for the rest of the world. What figures have I got? Who's here? Here we've got a Fall of Cybertron Soundwave. So he's actually taller, a little bit taller than Fall of Cybertron Soundwave. Nowhere near as bulky, but definitely taller. So he could fight a Transformer. We've got a Lionbot, a scale favourite of mine, only up to the middle of the chest on him. And I don't have any other figures from his show to compare him to, so there's not much useful scale I can show you. If a kaiju attacked him, he's bigger than Batra, at least as far as this Batra goes, so maybe he would stand a chance. I think in the cartoon, if you look it up, he's supposed to be about 80 meters tall, so bigger than most buildings you would run into outside of a kind of tall city environment. What else can I say? I'm pretty happy with this. My final thoughts on him. If you had to buy this guy, I can definitely recommend it. He's good in every way that I can think of. The only negative that I could possibly think to say is that these colours don't match the colours that he is through most of the show. So normally he's got green bits and pieces where you can see the red here. I'm not that much of a fan to know why this version is red. I never saw it, this colour in the show. But I'm not really worrying about that too much. I like this figure too much to let that little bit of red detail bother me in any way. Now, one thing that is going to cause me some grief is that now that I have one of the good guys, I need some of the bad guys. So I've seen that S.H.Monsterarts is planning on potentially doing the Angels a little bit later on in 2013. Now that I've got Unit 01, I need an Angel. I really need an Angel for him to be displayed fighting. And I will get one, and I'm sure I'm going to lose hundreds and hundreds of dollars buying Angels. So stay tuned for some more reviews in the future. This has been Odeean reviewing Bandai's Evangelion Test Unit 01 from the series SPEC XS. Thanks for watching.